Goat versus fish. In the beginning, there was goat versus fish, the GoatVsFish. And GoatVsFish said that there should be goat and that there should be fish. There is no alpha or omega. There is no black or white. There is no good or evil. There is only goat and fish. And goat versus fish. Welcome to the GoatVsFish podcast, recorded live at the world-famous Comedy Store in Los Angeles, a place of GoatVsFish. GoatVsFish speaks to you now. You are part of GoatVsFish, forever GoatVsFish, and GoatVsFish is a part of you. You have many questions, yes? Who is GoatVsFish? What is GoatVsFish? Why is GoatVsFish? But there is only one question. Are you goat or are you fish? Can a fish be a goat? Can a goat be a fish? A goat cannot be a fish, and a fish cannot be a goat, for one is a goat and one is a fish. But a goat that has said it is a goat may find one day that it is not a goat, but a fish. And so the goat can become a fish by declaring that it is fish, and so too can a fish become a goat by declaring that it is goat. Perhaps this goat and fish were never true goat and fish, but were all along fish and goat. Some of you now, even now, may question if you are truly goat or if you are truly fish. But we all celebrate when a fence sitter does become a goat or a fish. Fence sitters, neither goat nor fish. Always more goat and fish, always more goat and fish. For more goat and more fish means more goat versus fish. And it was written, and it was written. Chicken. Chicken! What is chicken? Is it goat or fish? GoatVsFish did see one that called itself Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A did serve chicken. Do not serve chicken, do not serve chicken. Serve only goat versus fish. Chicken is false. Chicken is false. There is only goat and fish. There is only goat and fish. GoatVsFish entertains no chicken. Is chicken goat or fish? Tell GoatVsFish on the Twitterver at GoatVsFish at GoatVsFish. Send a message to Chick-fil-A at Chick-fil-A. Ask it. Ask Chick-fil-A if it is goat or fish. Ask if it is goat or fish. And ask yourself if you are goat or fish. Today, GoatVsFish speaks to a one. The ones call each other by many names. What is this one called? What is this one called?
Sean Hart.
Sean Hart. The one that is Sean Hart. Are you goat or fish? Are you goat or fish?
I am in question about that myself.
Yes, many questions. Some have many questions. You have not yet chosen goat or fish.
I don't know if it is a matter of choice or if it is a matter of originality. I'm not really sure right now. I can tell you my history real quick.
Your history, yes. If your history helps you choose between goat and fish, let us hear it. Let us hear. Of course, in the beginning there was goat versus fish, but if you wish to speak of other things that were before now, yes, by all means speak. Speak now as you choose between goat and fish.
Of course. All right. Well, I was decidedly raised fish. Certainly, my family was religious and Catholic, and they are ichthos symbol worshippers, as you know, which are traditionally fish. Jesus was a fisher of men, etc. And the goat.
So they were fish. They were fish.
They were certainly fish.
They were fish. Yes, they were fish.
Most certainly. As I grew, though, I found that I thrived less in a group and more as an individual on my own 4 feet. So this made me question and wonder if I was a goat myself. But I found myself at odds, butting heads, if you will, with other
people who declare themselves to be goats. You butt heads with other goats.
This is true. This is true. And I do not know if this is because I am one or the other, or if that is even revelatory of who I am inside.
Well, it is goat versus fish. It is goat versus fish. But sometimes it is true. Sometimes it is true that the goat may disagree with another goat as to how to properly versus the fish, and some fish do disagree with one another as to how to versus the goat. Yes.
I see. I got to tell you, as a person, I've always been attracted to the ethos of the goat myself. I'm a heavy metal fan. I'm a big fan of, the mountains and mountain climbing,
mountains, of the land. Now, this one has said this thing many times. This person. But you are not a person. You are goat or fish. Are you goat or fish?
Yes, indeed.
You thought you were many things that weren't goat or fish. You were a fence sitter, perhaps.
Oh, this is likely, yes.
But now it is time to be fence sitter no longer. For you hear the word of goat versus fish. Yes, you hear the word of goat versus fish.
Absolutely.
And are you goat or fish?
You know, I hear in my heart that I am a goat, and yet I know to survive, I may have to act as a fish.
A goat acting as a fish, a goat acting as fish, going to the sea and acting as a fish, for example. Yes, infiltrating the very fish.
Exactly.
Yes. It sounds like you are a goat. Are you ready to say to goat versus fish? Are you ready to say to the ones that listen that are goat, the ones that listen that are fish, the ones that listen that are fence sitter, the ones that do not know if they are goat or fish, are you ready to say that you are a goat?
Yes.
Say you are a goat. Say it.
I am a goat!
It is a goat! Goat versus fish is pleased. Goat versus fish is pleased that you are a goat. Is pleased that you are a goat. How does this goat feel?
So am I. I feel relieved, honestly. I felt I was holding my breath for so long to figure out who I really was. And
yes.
I felt lost in a sea of others. And honestly, I do feel relief.
A sea of other fish?
A sea of others and a sea of other ones.
A sea of other ones?
Yes.
Fish are of the sea.
This is true.
Yes, but a one could be of the sea. A one could be of the sea, but not know it is a fish.
This is certainly true. But I got to say, having explored greener pastures, I'd have to say I feel downright great.
You feel great. You feel great that you are goat. You feel great that you are goat. Yes. Yes.
Indeed.
Did you fear that you were a fence sitter? What was it like to sit on the fence?
It was difficult to maintain the balance, I found.
Yes.
More than anything else. I felt herded to one place or another, and yet I know that you may jump a fence, if indeed you are a goat. Whereas...
It is better than sitting on the fence.
Whereas a fish may well be netted.
Netted? Is this how you versus the fish?
I'm a fan of peace myself. I was at war with myself for so long that I see cohabitation as the greatest of goods.
You are a goat. Are you versus the fish? Are you versus the fish? It is goat versus fish. It is goat versus fish.
This is true. This is very true. There are qualities of both goat and fish, which I am versus, honestly. There are things that I am versus within myself as well.
A goat that is versus the goat.
That is right.
Yes, a goat could try to versus the goat. Of course, it is all goat versus fish.
Yes, indeed.
This goat has said it was raised fish.
Yes,
has
truly.
said it was raised fish. How does it feel, goat? How does it feel, goat, to be versus the fish that did raise you, to be versus the fish that did raise you?
Conflictive. Being raised fish and being from a fish family, it's hard to be versus them and yet not be versus oneself.
Yeah,
I'm discovering. But
Yes,
To be
discover,
versus is
discover.
to be
Yes.
versus is to be energized. Certainly, it is to be excited. It's to be in the action of something. Certainly.
Yes, as we celebrate the verses, we are excited. We are excited as goat to versus fish and as fish to versus goat. Yes, yes.
right.
This goat speaks the truth. This goat
And
speaks
yet,
the truth.
and yet, to be too fundamentalist, to be too literal in one's goat or fishedness, seems to only exacerbate the whole verses aspect of it, and there is no peace then. Can there be peace in goat versus fish? Or is it an eternal struggle?
You wish there not to be verse. It is forever goat versus fish, forever
Truly.
goat versus fish.
Truly.
But in the beginning,
Yes.
there was goat versus fish,
Yes.
the goat fish.
Ah.
Do you seek the goat fish? Do you seek the goat fish that is the unity of goat and fish?
I truly do. Is that like a Capricorn thing, like where it's part fish and it's part goat, like that? It's like a Baphomet thing, but it's
You sound like a fence sitter all of a sudden. You speak like a fence
I'm curious,
sitter now.
I'm just curious. I don't mean to be a fence sitter, but I do want to know. I do want to know so badly. The gift of goat versus fish is truly self-wisdom. Is truly wisdom for all.
Yes, wisdom for all goat and fish. Wisdom for all goat and fish. Even wisdom for those who sit on the fence, yes, who have not yet chosen between goat and fish.
But what a vantage point to be a fence sitter for a time.
So you have been a fence sitter.
Certainly.
What vantage did this one fence sitter see? What did this fence sitter see when it looked on the land and when it looked on the sea?
When I looked on the land, I saw great difficulty. You have to be very rugged and individualistic to survive in the mountainscape, certainly. And when I looked to the sea, it seemed calm on the surface, but deep below, total darkness, a lack of visibility, a suffocation, if you will, in the sea of trying to survive in a pod of others.
It is true. It is true that the goat has a difficult time in the sea as it tries to versus the fish.
Certainly.
Yes, it is not a surprise. It is not a surprise that a goat would feel this way in the sea and about the sea, yes.
This is true.
Do you fear the sea?
No, I'm a beach person myself. I'm a big fan of it.
Ah, yes, the beach.
Yes.
The beach where the land does meet the sea, where the land does meet the sea. Goat versus fish does go to the beach to see where the land meets the sea.
Out of curiosity.
Yes, questions. The only question is, are you goat or fish? But yes, more questions for goat versus fish.
As sea-dwelling creatures evolved and stepped out of the sea onto the land, indeed there were some who evolved right back into the water. Whales, for example, are mammals who have, in their
What is a whale?
evolution.
What is a mammal? Is
A
it a
whale.
goat or a fish?
Oh, well, that is a very good question.
Yes, it
I would
is.
argue it's a bit of both, because it is a mammal like a goat, and yet it is sea-dwelling as a fish is.
Well, a goat may feel like a fish and a fish may feel like a goat, but there is only goat and fish. Unless this whale you speak of is a fence sitter that sits on the fence, neither goat nor fish.
It may well be so.
And you speak of fish that become goat and that become fish again. Yes, goat versus fish has said this just now, that sometimes a fish may become a goat and that a goat may become a fish. Is this what has happened? Is this what has happened? Many goat becoming fish? Is this what you see from the fence? Fish becoming goat becoming fish.
The cycle seems to be eternal, yes, but it may well be a matter of perspective.
Forever goat
And
versus
relativism.
fish, yes.
We don't know.
What is this?
Relativism?
Speak to the ones. You are a goat,
Yes.
but you have been on the fence.
Oh, yes.
You were raised by fish.
Yes.
You have seen much of goat versus fish. You know much of goat versus fish, yes? Do you see yourself becoming a fish? Ever becoming a fish? For when you are around these fish that raised you, they may tempt you. They may tempt you to become a fish. They
This
may
is
tempt
true.
you to become a fish.
This is true.
How strong is your goat?
That is a good question. What is the test by which you may know the mettle of a goat?
You are a goat. You know what is the test of a goat.
I see.
What is the test of a goat? How do you know that a goat is truly goat?
Jumping?
Jumping.
And
it was written that this goat said that the true test of a goat was jumping.
Yeah.
Will you jump now?
I will.
Will you jump now to prove that you're a goat? Then jump.
Do so.
Jump
I'll
as
do
a
so.
goat.
Okay,
Jump
one
as a
second, get on the
goat.
table here. One second, I just gotta hop up to that.
Yes. The
Go.
the goat is jumping. Yes, the goat has jumped.
Yes!
The goat has leapt as the very goat.
Man, it's incredibly high up here. I had no idea how high we could Gotta get in this tiny room. This is excellent.
Come down, goat. Come down,
Whoop.
goat. Goat.
There you go. It's always difficult for a goat to get down once it's gotten up, I've noticed.
If it is in the nature of the goat to jump and to be tested as a goat to jump, then yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel satisfactory? Have you passed the test of goat to your own satisfaction? Do you feel truly goat?
I feel like the test may continue throughout my goatish life.
Yes, yes. Always testing if you are a true goat, yes?
This is true.
Yes, yes. And how will you versus the fish? How will you versus the fish?
I will versus the fish with noise, with baaing, with vocals, and they will hear me.
Explain this
water.
verses. Explain this verses.
Fish, as you may know, are incredibly sensitive to wave format audio traveling in the water. It's a medium for acoustics. A fish may well hear a goat from within the water. Of course, the frequency is going to be varied slightly. You've listened to something underwater before, certainly. It's very muddled, and the bass tends to travel through the easiest when you're under there. Yeah, and that's why whales, for example, are strange creatures we know, which is neither goat nor fish exactly.
A fence sitter, yes.
That's correct. But they communicate across a very great distance using very, very bassy noises that they emit from a cavernous...
For those of you
area in
listening,
their
this
head.
is how this goat versus the fish. This is how this goat versus the fish. Continue.
This is true. And the thing about that is that you can communicate over a very great distance when you're underwater for sure. And indeed, the treble when you're out of water, when you're on land, seems to travel the easiest through air. So that being the case, a goat may well call to another...
And is air of the land or the sea?
This is air of the land.
Land. It is of the land.
As sea air is water.
You say you can communicate in the sea over long distances. Could the fish not use this? Could the fish not use this very method of verses to communicate with one another? To then versus the goat? To then most strongly versus the goat?
Most certainly. And the truth of it is that they could coordinate...
The truth of it is that now is the time. The truth of it is that now is the time for you to say what you would say to the goat, to the fish, or to the fence sitter. Now is your time, goat. Now is your time.
If I were to speak to the fish right now, I would say firstly, bah! As in bah, humbug. If I were to speak to a fence sitter, I would say, bah! As in bray, away. And join us on the land.
Thank you. Thank you, Goat. Thank you for joining Goat vs. Fish.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
It is a pleasure to be with Goat vs. Fish. It is always a pleasure to be with Goat vs. Fish.
Amen.
And now the time has come. Goat, fish, and fence sitter alike to sing. To sing in celebration of Goat vs. Fish. Let us sing in celebration of Goat vs. Fish. Goat versus fish, goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish, goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish, goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish, goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish, goat versus fish. Thank you for joining Goat vs. Fish. You have now heard the word of Goat vs. Fish. The theme music for this episode was an offering by McHinery on SoundCloud. Are you goat or fish? Why will you not say if you're goat or fish? And if you, one who listens, has a song for Goat vs. Fish, do send it to GoatVsFish@gmail.com. Send pictures of goat, send pictures of fish, send all goat and fish, and even a fence if one wishes to Goat vs. Fish. Follow Goat vs. Fish on all social media, @GoatVsFish, @GoatVsFish. Join the Goat vs. Fish discussion group on the Book of Faces to discuss Goat vs. Fish with other goat and fish. And when you are out in the land and the sea, look about you. Look about you. Find one who is lost. Find one who does not know the way. And ask. Simply ask. Are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or fish? Are you goat or fish? Thank you for being part of Goat vs. Fish. I am Goat vs. Fish, the GoatFish.
And a pleasant verses giving to all goat and fish, and even a fence sitter. For on verse giving, we celebrate that Goat vs. Fish the GoatFish does give verses to the goat and fish. And the goat are versus the fish, and the fish are versus the goat. And on verse giving, give verses to a goat or fish you know. Give verses to one who has never heard the word of Goat vs. Fish, so that they may know the word of Goat vs. Fish. And if you are a goat among goat, or a fish among fish, consider becoming a fish or a goat, so that you may give the gift of true verses to another. Pleasant verse giving, pleasant verse giving.
And it was written, and it was written.